Let's take a look at situational influences in leadership. The situation can influence the leadership behavior or style a leader emphasizes. The essence of a contingency approach to leadership is that leaders are most effective when they make their behavior contingent on situational forces, including group member characteristics. Both the internal and the external environment have a significant impact on leader effectiveness. A useful perspective on implementing contingency leadership is that the manager must be flexible enough to avoid clinging to old ideas that no longer fit the current circumstance. Being stubborn about what will work in a given situation and clinging to old ideas can result in ineffective leadership. The effective leader adapts to changing circumstances. The leader needs to take into account the major situational variable of organizational culture when choosing which approach to leadership will lead to favorable outcomes. A command and control leadership style may not be effective in a company with a collaborative, friendly organizational culture. If the culture does not fit what a leader wants to accomplish, they may attempt to change the culture. Victor H. Vroom and Arthur J. Yago have identified three conclusions about the role of situations in leadership. The conclusions are geared to support the idea that leadership involves motivating others to work collaboratively in the pursuit of a common goal. We'll add a fourth conclusion focused on the organizational structure. Organizational effectiveness is affected by situational factors not under the control of a leader. The leader might be able to influence the situation, yet some situational factors are beyond the leader's complete control. Contingency theorists believe that forces in the situation are three times as strong as the leader's personal characteristics in shaping his or her behavior. How the leader behaves is therefore substantially influenced by environmental forces. Situations influence the consequences of leader behavior. Popular books about management and leadership assume that certain types of leader behavior work in every situation. Situational theorists disagree strongly with this position. Instead, a specific type of leadership behavior might have different outcomes in different situations. The type of organization influences which leadership approach is best. Henry Mintzberg has identified the form of organization as a key situational variable influencing which approach to leadership is likely to be most effective. A general approach to being aware of all of these factors is for the leader to be mindful of events in the environment. Fred E. Fiedler developed a widely researched contingency model many years ago that holds that the best style of leadership is determined by the situation in which the leader is working. Although this theory is no longer the subject of new research, it still provides a few useful suggestions for today's leader. Fiedler's theory classifies a manager's leadership style as relationship motivated or task motivated. Style is therefore based on the extent to which the leader is relationship or task motivated. According to Fiedler, leadership style is a relatively permanent aspect of behavior and thus difficult to modify. Leaders are regarded as having a consistent style of task or relation orientation. Fiedler reasons that once leaders understand their particular leadership style, they should work in situations that match that style. Similarly, the organization should help managers match leadership styles and situations. The LPC scale measures the degree to which a leader describes favorably or unfavorably his or her LPC, that is, an employee with whom he or she could work the least well. The general idea of the least preferred coworker approach is that if you have a positive, charitable attitude toward people you had a difficult time working with, you're probably relationship oriented. In contrast, if you take a dim view of people who give you a hard time, you're probably task oriented. The message here is that a relationship oriented leader should be able to work well with a variety of personalities. Fiedler's contingency theory classifies situations as high, moderate, and low control. The more control that the leader exercises, the more favorable the situation is for the leader. The control classifications are determined by rating the situation on its three dimensions. First, leader-member relations measure how well the group and the leader get along. Second, task structure measures how clearly the procedures, goals, and evaluation of the job are defined. Third, position power measures the leader's authority to hire, fire, discipline, and grant salary increases to group members. Leader member relations contribute as much to situational favorability as do task structure and position power combined. The leader, therefore, has most control in a situation in which relationships with members are the best. A practical implication of the contingency theory is that leaders should modify situations to match their leadership style, thereby enhancing their chances of being effective. Consider a group of leaders who are task motivated and decide that they need to exercise more control over the situation to achieve higher work unit productivity. To increase control over the situations, they can do one or more of the following: improve leader member relations through displaying an interest in the personal welfare of group members, having meals with them, actively listening to their concerns, telling anecdotes, and in general being a nice person. Increase task structure by engaging in behaviors related to initiating structure, such as being more specific about expectations, providing deadlines, showing samples of acceptable work, and providing written instruction. Exercise more power by requesting more formal authority from higher management. For example, the leader might let it be known that he or she has the authority to grant bonuses and make strong recommendations for promotion. Now imagine a relationship motivated leader who wants to create a situation of moderate favorability so that his or her interest in being needed by the group could be satisfied. The leader might give the group tasks of low structure and de emphasize his or her positional power. The path goal theory of leadership effectiveness specifies what a leader must do to achieve high productivity and morale in a given situation. In general, a leader attempts to clarify the path to a goal for a group member so that the group member receives personal payoff. At the same time, this group member's job satisfaction and performance increases. Similar to expectancy theory of motivation, on which it's based, path goal theory is multifaceted and has several versions. The major proposition of path goal theory is that the manager should choose a leadership style that takes into account the characteristics of the group members and the demands of the task. Furthermore, initiating structure will be effective in situations with a low degree of subordinate task structure, but ineffective in highly structured task situations. The rationale is that in the first situation, subordinates welcome initiating structure because it helps to provide structure to their somewhat ambiguous task. Instead of just flailing around, the leader provides guidance. In the situation of highly structured tasks, more structure is seen as unnecessary and associated with overly close supervision. For leaders to be effective, they should engage in behaviors that complement subordinates' environments and ability. Two key aspects of this theory will be discussed: matching the leadership style to the situation and the steps of the leader that they can take to influence performance and satisfaction. Path goal theory emphasizes that the leader should choose among four leadership styles to achieve optimal results in a given situation. Two important sets of contingency factors are the types of subordinates and the tasks they perform, a key environmental factor. The type of subordinates is determined by how much control they think they have over the environment, locus of control, and by how well they think they can do the assigned task. Environmental contingency factors are those that are not within the control of group members but influence satisfaction and task accomplishment. Three broad classifications of contingency factors in the environment are group member tasks, the authority system within the organization, and the work group. To use path goal theory, the leader must first assess the relevant variables in the environment. Then he or she selects one of the four styles listed next that fits the contingency factor best. The leader, who is directive, similar to task motivated, emphasizes formal activities such as planning, organizing, and controlling. When the task is unclear, the directive style improves morale. The leader who is supportive, like relationship motivated, displays concern for group members' well being and creates an emotionally supportive climate. Group members who are unsure of themselves prefer the supportive leadership style. The leader who is participative consults with group members to gather their suggestions, and then considers them seriously when making a decision. This style is well suited to motivate employees who perform non repetitive tasks. The leader who is achievement oriented sets challenging goals, pushes for work improvement, and sets high expectations for team members who are also expected to assume responsibility. The leadership style works well with achievement oriented team members, with those working on ambiguous and non repetitive tasks. A leader can sometimes successfully combine more than one of the four styles, although this possibility is not specified in the path goal theory. In addition to recommending the leadership style to fit the situation, the path goal theory offers other suggestions to leaders. Most of them relate to motivation and satisfaction, including the following: recognize or activate group members' needs over which the leader has control, increase the personal payoffs to team members for attaining work goals. The leader might give high performing employees special recognition, make the paths to payoffs, rewards, easier by coaching and providing direction. Help group members clarify their expectations of how effort will lead to good performance and how performance will lead to reward. Reduce frustrating barriers to reaching goals. Increase opportunities for personal satisfaction if the group member performs effectively. The if is important because it reflects contingent behavior on the leader's part. Be careful not to irritate people by giving them instructions on things they already can do well. To obtain high performance and satisfaction, the leader must provide structure if it's missing and supply rewards. To accomplish this, leaders must clarify the desirability of goals for group members. As a leader, you can benefit from path goal theory by applying these 8 methods of influencing performance. Although research interest in path goal theory has almost disappeared in recent years, the basic tenets of the theory are on target. Any comprehensive theory of leadership must include the idea of the leader's actions have a major impact on the motivation and satisfaction of group members. Despite the potential contributions of path goal theory, it contains so many nuances and complexities that it has attracted little interest from managers. Another contingency viewpoint is that leaders must choose a style that elicits the correct degree of group participation when making decisions. The normative decision model views leadership as a process in which the leader examines situational factors to determine which decision making style will be the most effective. The normative model identifies 5 decision making styles, each reflecting a different degree of participation by group members. The leader makes the decision alone and either announces or sells it to the group. The leader might use expertise in collecting information from the group or others who appear to have information relevant to the problem. The leader presents the problem to the group members individually, gathers their suggestions, and then makes a decision. Or the leader presents the problem to the group members in a meeting, gathers their suggestions, and then makes a decision. The leader presents the problem and the facts as a facilitator, defining the problem to be solved and the boundaries in which the decision must be made. The leader avoids having his or her ideas receive more weight based on position power. The leader might permit the group to make the decision within prescribed limits. Although the leader does not directly intervene in the group's deliberations unless explicitly asked, he or she works behind the scenes, providing resources and engagement. The leader diagnoses the situation in terms of 7 variables or contingency factors that contribute to selecting the most appropriate decision-making style. Based on the answers to those variables, the leader or manager follows the path through decision matrices to choose one of the 5 decision-making styles. The model has 2 versions, one when it's time critical, and one when its more important consideration is developing group members' decision-making capability. When development of group member receives higher priority, the leader or manager relies more on the group to make a decision, even if the process is time consuming. The situational factors or problem variables make the model a contingency approach. The decision making style chosen depends on the following factors: the significance of the decision to the success of the project or organization, the importance of team members' commitment to the decision, your knowledge or expertise in relation to the problem, the likelihood that the team will commit itself to a decision you might make on your own, the degree to which the team supports the organization's objectives at stake in the problem, team members' knowledge or expertise in relation to the problem, the ability of team members to work together in solving problems. Accurate answers to these 7 situational factors can be challenging to obtain. The leader may have to rely heavily on intuition and also minimize distorted thinking, such as believing he or she has some expertise but in fact does not. Although applying the model in its true form is complicated and subject to misinterpretation, the takeaway from the model provides useful clues about making group versus individual decisions as follows. You need important information from others. The problem is not clearly defined. Team member acceptance is important, and you have sufficient time to address the problem. Or you have more expertise than others, you're confident about your ability to make the decision, the team will most likely accept the decision, and the time available for decision making is limited. The normative model provides a valuable service to practicing managers and leaders. It prompts them to ask questions about contingency variables in decision-making situations. At a minimum, the model prompts the leader to reflect on whether to make a group or unilateral decision in relation to an issue of consequence. Leaders who adapt their style to different individuals within the group or have different quality relationships with individual group members are essentially practicing contingency leadership. Hundreds of studies have been conducted about the LMX theory. Here, we present several conclusions from LMX research that indicate a contingency approach to leadership. LMX theory has been extensively researched, and only parts of the theory are about contingency leadership. Leaders tend to give members of their in-group more favorable performance ratings than they give out-group members, even when their objective performance is the same. Leaders do not always have different relationships with each group member, but they may respond the same way to a few members of each group. For example, the leader might show equal care and trust for 3 members of an 8-person team. In larger groups, there tends to be more differences with respect to LMXs. As a result, the leader is more likely to use a slightly different style with various group members, such as being more authoritarian with several of them. A manager is more likely to act as a servant leadership towards subordinates whom he or she has high quality exchanges. As a consequence, in-group members are likely to perceive that they have a leader who is working on their behalf. Leaders are more likely to empower group members with whom they have high quality exchange or good relationship because they're more likely to trust those members. Research suggests, however, that better results for the organization will be attained if leaders attempt to have high quality relationships with more group members and empower them at the same time. A study of 143 teams in 3 organizations suggested that moderate degrees of LMX differentiation improve coordination with the team and yield the highest level of team performance. Surprisingly, LMX differentiation leads to more positive commitment and citizenship behavior when the LMX quality is lower rather than higher. Apparently, when a worker does not have a good relationship with the boss, he or she will have even better work attitudes when the leader treats most people differently. Leading during a crisis can be regarded as contingency leadership because the situation demands that the leader emphasize certain behaviors, attitudes, and traits. Crisis leadership is the process of leading group members through a sudden and largely unanticipated, intensely negative, and emotionally draining circumstance. Leadership is a key ingredient in successful crisis management. Effective crisis leadership ensures that a business is prepared before a crisis emerges and that successfully navigates the response and recovery. Here, we describe 9 leadership attributes and attitudes as well as behaviors associated with successfully leading an organization or unit through a crisis. The best accepted principle of crisis leadership is that the leader should take divisive and decisive action to remedy the situation. The greater the crisis, the less time the leader has to consult a wide array of people. After a plan is formulated, it should be widely communicated to help reassure group members that something concrete is being done about the predicament. A corollary of being decisive during a crisis is to not be indecisive or to hide from a crisis when it's in its midst. The first phase of crisis leadership is to stabilize the emergency situation and buy time. Being decisive in response to a crisis also includes communicating widely the plans for resolving the problems that created the crisis, assuming that the organization had some responsibility for it. Compassionate leadership brings about organizational healing involving taking some form of public action that eases pain and inspires others to act as well. Compassionate leadership encompasses 2 related sets of actions. The first is to create an environment in which affected workers can freely discuss how they feel, such as a group meeting, to talk about the crisis or disaster. The second is to create a way in which workers who experience or witness pain can alleviate their own suffering and that of others. The leader might establish a special fund or an opportunity to receive grief counseling. During an organizational crisis, it's even more important for the leader to think strategically and see the big picture, because subordinates may become so mired in the crisis that they see no way out. When tough times hit, it pays to increase communication about the problems facing the company or unit and what might be done to improve the situation. A temporary drop in performance and productivity is almost inevitable for most workers after disaster strikes, even if the organization was not directly affected. The leader should emphasize the temporary nature of the performance decline. Leaders who keep their company or division focused on core values are likely to endure difficult times. Lowering core values to help overcome adversity can create permanent damage. One of the worst ways to lead a group through a crisis is to strongly defend yourself against your critics or deny wrongdoing. The same denial approach is referred to as maintaining a bunker mentality or stonewalling the problem. Pessimists abound in every crisis, so an optimistic leader can help energize group members to overcome the bad times. The effective crisis leader draws action plans and gives people hope for a better future. A key part of planning for physical disaster, for example, is to anticipate where you'll go, how you will get in touch with employees, and where you might set up a temporary workplace. Effective leaders stay calm and are steady performers, even under heavy workloads and uncertain conditions. Remaining steady in crisis contributes to effectiveness because it helps team members cope with the situation. During times of large and enduring crises, transformational leadership may be the intervention of choice. The transformational leader can often lead the organization out of misery. Transformational leadership is likely to benefit the troubled organization both in dealing with the immediate crisis and in performing better in the long run. A leading edge way for a person to practice contingency leadership would be to look for research based evidence about the best way to deal with a given situation. Evidence based leadership or management is an approach whereby managers translate principles based on best evidence into organizational practices. The systematic use of scientific evidence, along with evidence from other sources such as experience, had its origins in medicine about 25 years ago. Quite often, the best evidence is recent, but old principles can still be useful. The alternative to evidence based leadership is to rely heavily on common sense and adopting practices used by other companies, whether or not they fit a particular situation. Evidence based leadership and management is not yet widely practiced, but taking the study of leadership and management seriously will move managers and organizations towards basing their practices and decisions on valid evidence. The result is likely to be more precise contingency leadership.